Hello everyone, welcome to another Open Cluster Management Community meeting. The content of this meeting will be uploaded to YouTube, so please be mindful of that. For today's agenda, we're excited to have Matt joining us to talk about the enhancement of securing sensitive data in the Hub policy template. So whenever you're ready, Matthew, please take it away. Thanks.
All right, thanks. I'll take over the screen share. Okay, maybe I'll share screen a little bit on the enhancement first. So I'll switch that over. So for those of you who may not be familiar with what Hub policy templates are, it was in the past release of Open Cluster Management, it was included where on a policy, you can dynamically add content from another Kubernetes object. Sorry, there's a little echo. I'm waiting for Hal to mute.
Grabación activada.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. So it allows you to dynamically get content from a Kubernetes object and place it within the policy that gets propagated to the managed cluster to be applied. And so one of the drawbacks here is that the implementation of how policies work is that if you were trying to distribute sensitive data, say from a secret to a managed cluster, that would be stored in the policy in plain text. And this is an issue for one, because perhaps you have looser ACLs to allow viewing a policy compared to the where the secret data originated from. And the other issue is that etcd encryption is only limited to a select few object types. So secrets, config maps, and I think routes as well. And so the issue is that you would have your data from a secret object that would be encrypted at rest in etcd, but then afterwards, if it was then stored in a policy and then distributed to the managed cluster, that would not be encrypted anymore. And so to summarize, the goal here is to be able to securely distribute content from the hub to a managed cluster using policies. So I will switch my screen share over now to a terminal. Okay, so I've kind of set up the environment a little bit ahead of time. And first, I'll show you the secret on the hub cluster. If you see on the right-hand side, I have two terminals. One is the hub and one is my managed cluster. So right now I'm on the hub, and I'm looking at this secret called demo secret, which has just a couple dummy values for the sake of this demo. We have the city, which is just the base 64 of Raleigh, and state is NC. And so this could be, any values, but, assuming you want to basically create a secret that contains this data on the managed cluster, you can utilize a policy. So the policy that I have set up for us today, if it is called policy demo, is in the demo namespace. And essentially, what we're doing is creating a secret just with that same data. This is what a hub policy template looks like. What's new here is in this feature is that the from secret policy template is available. So now I'm saying, from secret in the same namespace that is that the policy was created in. That is a restriction for hub policy templates. They cannot reference data outside of the namespace the policy is defined in. I want to take the secret demo secret and then grab the city value from it. As you saw before, we had on the secret, we had city and state. Now, you can also protect sensitive data coming from other sources. Here's just another way of doing this, where you can use the generic lookup function, where you just specify the API version, the object type. The namespace we again leave blank, or you set it to the namespace that the root policy is in, and then you specify the object name, and then you can select the attribute on the object itself, and then you can pipe it to this new template function called protect. And so what this does is, from secret under the hood as well as protect, we'll then encrypt this data using AES CBC, using an AES 256 key that is unique per managed cluster. So if you're not familiar with how policies work under the hood, this is the root policy that's defined, and then based on which policies, which clusters this policy applies for, there is a replicate policy that gets created in the managed cluster namespace. So this is the one I'm looking at now. You're looking at the policy demo policy, but this one's in cluster 1 because that's the name of my managed cluster. And instead of seeing those hub templates, you're now seeing this OCM encrypted prefix and then the base 64 of the encrypted value, again using AES CBC, using an AES 256 key. Now, there's additionally this annotation here. If you're familiar with AES CBC, you need to provide a unique initialization vector, which doesn't need to be private. It just needs to be unique. So this is what this is. It's a unique value per policy, and doing that allows the data using the same encryption. If the same data is encrypted using the same encryption key, but distributed with different policies, because the initialization vector is different, that encrypted content will also look different when it's encrypted. So that way, an attacker can't know that those two values are the same. So then, how this is actually happening, as I told you, we're using an encryption key. This is stored as a secret in the managed cluster namespace. And so this secret is called policy encryption key, and then it's stored as the key field here. So now moving over to the managed cluster, we can see that that policy encryption key was copied over to the managed cluster, so that way it's able to do the decryption. And again, we can look at the replicate policy made it over to the managed cluster as well, and it has the same encrypted data. And now we can look at the created secret. If you recall, it's the demo secret copy in the default namespace that we're creating, and we can see the same values are present there as on the hub. Now, one of the things that we need to account for is that we need to rotate the policy encryption key occasionally, whether that is just every 30 days, which is the default value here, or if a managed cluster gets compromised and you need to use a new encryption key for that. So I'll show you the scenario for the latter of how you would do that. So on the hub, the managed cluster namespace, we edit the policy encryption key secret. And there's this annotation here called last rotated. Now, this is what a controller on the hub looks for to know when a key rotation is necessary. But if I want to rotate it immediately, I can just set it to an empty value. Now, if I go to view that, we can see that there's this new field called previous key, which contains the encryption key that was previously on the key field. And now there's a new value on the key field. And the reason why there's this previous key is that so while all the policies that use this encryption key are getting reprocessed and distributed to the managed cluster, um, we want the managed cluster to be able to decrypt the old policies that haven't made their way to the managed cluster yet. There's just that gap in time until everything gets updated and then pushed to the managed cluster. And so after that, we can see that it's a different encrypted value now on the policy. If you have good memory, I guess you would notice that, but the different value, it's now using the new encryption key. So with that, I will pause and wait for any questions or comments. All right, well, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. And if you have any questions or comments that come up, feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you, Matt. I saw that we have a new participant on Wiki. Wiki, I saw on the Kubernetes Slack channel that you mentioned that you're interested in participating on some of the OCM work. And you're wondering which. Sorry, I guess first, are you the same person as the
Yes.
person on?
Yeah, I figured that, when I typed on BlueJeans, I should have put, my same name or the everything. I'm the same guy. I'm Arcarilla Cruz. So yeah, I'll fix that for the next time. Yeah. So so I work at Red Hat. Turns out though, so I'm working on the RAN team. We're doing a lot of things, for in the telco space, and we're using, ACM heavily. I've been the writer and designer of an operator that basically kind of manages the lifecycle of upgrades for clusters that are meant to run workloads for telco. And we're using ACM, as the engine for using policies for pushing configurations into the target clusters. And, I figured I've been out, on paternity leave for 3 or 4 months, and now that I'm back, I've seen that the community is kind of boiling up, and see that more action, and I'm here to basically just ask where I can help. I'm happy to do anything. If it's if there are good first issues, writing tests, whatever, I'm happy to just help. Whenever you think it's there's a need to have a focus, basically.
Qjang, what do you think? Should
Yeah, I think one thing that we actually discussed, maybe let me check if I still have that. I think one can give me 1 minute. Let me find the thing. Yeah, let me share my screen. Yeah, that just remind me about this talk about how do we want to enhance the community and improve the user experience. So we have several, some more comments in that. Some doesn't have the issues, but maybe we should create an issue for each of the suggestions here. But I think this is something that we should consider as something. Yeah, maybe Ricky, you can also take a look at this document, and from your perspective, what do you think? Like how, for example, there are some actions that we want to do, and maybe you would have more other suggestions on this. That could be a.
Yeah, sounds like a good start. So I guess that's linked on the agenda somehow. Let me see.
Yeah, will
I
push out
post a link in the chat, and I'll also post where you can find it easier in case you lost the link.
Okay, yeah, I got it. Okay, yeah, sounds good. So I'll get a look, and I'll just reach out in the Slack, and you say that there are like no GitHub issues linked to these points from this document. So maybe I'll just review them, maybe organize them a little bit and create them as GitHub issues, and then I can discuss. Hey, how about I start tackling this or that or whatever. Does that sound good?
That sounds great. I
Yeah.
think on one of the issue, I did create a GitHub issue, but it's assigned to myself. But for the other ones, yeah, we're probably missing a lot of them. Thank you.
Right. I mean, the reason why I'm saying that it would be good that we kind of like distill into actionable items on GitHub is because I want to advocate a little bit on our internal team and brand, and maybe bring over some people that may have interest also in helping upstream, and then it's easier. Just hey, just to get this issue and you can start working on it, and that's it. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Ricky, does Rand stand for anything?
Oh, access network. So, I mean, it's a very ethereal name. Basically, what we do is that we use OpenShift as a base for telcos to run their workloads on top of them, containerized native functions, basically, and there are a lot of challenges for managing those fleet of clusters. So that's my main focus. So manage the life cycle of those clusters for provisioning and upgrading and recovery. I mean, we have multiple sub teams working on that area, basically.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you and welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Wes.
Okay, I'm going to open up the floor and see if there are any more comments or questions. Okay, thank you for coming, everyone. Have a nice day. Take care, everyone.
Have a good one. Thank you, folks.